everyone, and welcome once again to The View from the Midwest. It's time for another post-match edition for St. Louis FC, as they just got done taking on Seattle Sounders FC 2, and they ended up tying by a score of 1-1. But unfortunately, it just doesn't feel very good, despite the fact that they were lucky to get that 1 point. Just because it was a terrible game. I'm sorry. I'm happy that they got the goal, but it just wasn't a good game to watch overall. Just almost everything that they could do wrong, they did wrong. There was a little bit of a goalkeeping mistake that led to the goal. There was a little bit of a passing mistake that led to the goal. It was kind of a combination thereof. And depending on your own viewpoints, you're going to place a little bit more blame on one side or the other. But it was a miscue by all parties, really. Both A.J. Cochran and Thompson as well, that kind of led to that first goal. And it looked for the longest time like it was going to end up being like Swope Park Rangers all over again, that you were going to give up a cheap goal, and that the team that was nowhere near your level in terms of talent, at least in the standings, was going to make it hold up and end up winning the game. Now, fortunately for St. Louis FC, they were able to utilize a couple set pieces to create a few chances, and then finally put one in towards the end of the game, with Sam Fink getting a good goal off of a set piece coming off the corner, and ultimately set up by Cochran, and Fink was able to get it in. But just overall, I mean, 2 weeks in a row where you're facing an inferior team, and you're not able to take advantage of that. I mean, I understand that Swope Park has been playing better in the last few weeks than they were earlier in the season when we faced them at the soccer park. But for whatever reason, St. Louis FC can take on Tulsa and they can have their way with them. Well, the team that we just faced, the Seattle team, Seattle 2, they're not much better in the standings. I think they have a couple more points, basically the same amount of wins, 3 wins on the season. And they pretty much had their way with St. Louis. I don't know what was going on. St. Louis could not get anything going in the midfield. It was kind of frustrating because I'm a proponent of the old school 4-4-2 kind of system. I understand that it's not necessarily the way things are played today unless you have just 2 fabulous goal scorers that you want to put up top. But the way that they were playing, oftentimes you had Hardware dropping in just behind Herrera. So if you're going to do that and you're not getting a whole lot of midfield play anyway, why not just go with somewhat of a diamond midfield and put 2 people up top, put Lynch up top, put Cicerelli up top, somebody to help along with the scoring, because it got so bad that Herrera it was like watching the U.S. men's national team when they're at their worst, where you get Dempsey coming too far back to get a hold of the ball. Well, that's what Herrera was having to do. He was coming back practically to the midfield stripe to try to get some possession, try to build something. Well, when he's your main goal scorer and he's that deep and having to go that far to get towards the goal, you're not going to have a whole lot of good play unless you're linking up, which St. Louis FC was not doing. The passing was terrible. The crossing was terrible. The field vision was terrible. I mean, I counted 4 or 5 times where Dixon made a good run up the wing, and they would have been able to get a cross in if they would have slid it outside to him, and instead they go straight up the middle to a guy who's got 2 people on him, whether it was Hardware or Herrera or Musa, whatever the case might have been. They tried to go up the central portion of the field much too often, and it just was not working. And they would pass themselves into trouble left and right, and I don't understand it. I don't know what Seattle's defense looks like on a general portion of the season, but St. Louis FC was making them look like they were world beaters in this instance. The referee was letting them get away with a lot. There were 4 or 5 times at least where one of their central defenders and then also one of their wingers, wing defenders, had basically a half Nelson. He was coming up under the armpit, reaching around, grabbing the shoulder of Herrera. Nothing was called, however. I mean, I understand that the USL is a bit more of a physical league akin to the MLS, but that should not be allowed. You should be able to body the forward if you're a defender. But coming up and basically hooking the arm and getting him in almost in a UFC or an amateur wrestling move is just not in the spirit of the game. But the official didn't want to do anything, and St. Louis FC ended up getting the bulk of the cards, it seemed like, and getting a lot of fouls for things that weren't necessarily called the other way. But the official overall did a fine job. It was just a disappointing game for St. Louis FC because they were just really, really bad, I thought. They let the Swope Park performance carry over into this game. And it should have been a game to where it should have been a comfortable win. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage anybody on the Seattle roster, but when you've only got 3 wins on the season, there's a reason for that. And if St. Louis FC is trying to make that push to get to be one of the upper echelon teams, trying to get themselves into the playoffs, then you have to take advantage of these teams that are under you in the standings. And this is 2 weeks in a row now that they haven't done it, or 2 games, I guess I should say, because we won't reach 2 weeks until this Saturday when they play Cincinnati. But St. Louis FC has got to find a way, outside of Tulsa, of course, to play above their competition. When they play some of the better teams, they seem to have better games. When they play down to your competition, and you simply cannot do that. They need to find a way to be able to dominate their opposition. I understand that there was a bit of squad rotation that kind of threw a bit of a wrench into there, but you still had guys like Roberts in there. You still had guys that should have been more than capable of pulling off a decent performance, and for whatever reason, Hardware's touch wasn't there. Cochran seemed to be giving balls away left and right, setting up offensive opportunities. They tried to give it back to Thompson 2 or 3 times and almost gave it away, which could have led to goals. The goal that was scored was somewhat of a miscue and a giveaway. So, I mean, you're playing on turf. You should have a consistent role on every single pass. And I don't know if they were afraid that they were going to put too much on some of the passes or what happened, but just the touch for a good 90% of the team was not there throughout the game. And I feel they were very fortunate to get the draw in and of itself. But you come away, you have a bad performance, you still get a point out of it. You can't necessarily thumb your nose at that too much, but they should have gotten 3 points. This one should have been an easy game, and it's frustrating as a fan because it literally seems like every time I check the standings before a game and you see, oh, well, this team's not doing very well, we should have an easy win. The same thing happened last year with Montreal, and we got trounced. And now all of a sudden we can't even seem to get anything going against Seattle this year. So maybe I need to stop looking at the standings before games and declaring potential wins, because it just doesn't seem to happen for this team. They've got to go out there. They've got to earn it. Still a point. Can't complain too much, although I did a lot of it there. Let me know what you guys think about the game in the comment section. Comment, rate, and subscribe. But until the next time, this has been The View from the Midwest. And I guess until the next game, which will be this Saturday, I'll see you then.